the wild, have a little think, take pause and think about the things that make us happy. gbnews.com/you'll say.
Now, 5 minutes past 6, the Prime Minister has flown 3,000 miles across the Atlantic for his meeting with President Trump today.
Well, speaking to reporters, he dismissed growing tensions between the US and Europe and insists the special relationship must go from strength to strength.
Well, our political editor, Christopher Hope, has the latest from Washington.
Sir Keir Starmer touched down in Washington, D.C. last night for what will be today the most consequential meeting of his 7 months as Prime Minister. He meets with Donald Trump, of course, in the Oval Office, a key meeting with the fate of Ukraine hanging in the balance and the future of any peace deal which might be agreed between Ukraine and Russia. On the flight over, Sir Keir Starmer told us in no uncertain terms that it was vital Donald Trump agreed to underwrite any security deal after any peace deal is signed with Russia, between Russia and Ukraine. He made clear the security guarantee was important in case Putin came again after any peace deal was signed. And he said the UK was looking at putting in UK troops to help enforce that peace deal. To get ready for that commitment, Sir Keir Starmer has taken a major step for a Labour Prime Minister. He's cut foreign aid budget to spend on defence. But all hangs in a balance here in Washington, D.C. Will Trump agree to a European security pact to ensure that peace in Ukraine?
Well, as Christopher mentioned, it's expected Sir Keir will push the president to provide a backstop, a US backstop against further Russian aggression in Ukraine. The problem with that? Well, Trump isn't sold.
I'm not going to make security guarantees beyond very much. We're going to have Europe do that because it's in, we're talking about Europe as their next door neighbor. The European Union's it was formed in order to screw the United States. I mean, look, let's be honest. The European Union was formed in order to screw the United States. That's the purpose of it. And they've done a good job of it, but now I'm president.
What concessions would you like to see? What concessions would you like to see?
Oh, I don't want to tell right now, but I can tell you that NATO you can forget about. I think that's probably the reason the whole thing started.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GBnews to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Well, joining us in the studio this morning is political commentator Theo Usherwood. Good to see you this morning,
Very good to see you.
Theo. And those comments just highlight the scale of the challenge that is facing Keir Starmer today in Washington.
Very much so. Keir Starmer has somehow got to persuade the president that actually it's in America's interest to support Europe. But as you heard from President Trump there at his cabinet, I'm not going to make security guarantees beyond very much. We're going to have Europe do that. So he's already been rebuffed aircraft, and that was even before Keir Starmer's plane landed ahead of today's crucial meeting.
And yet, I mean, I don't know how we balance it out, because there is an argument to say, well, fair enough.
Yeah.
As Trump says, this is all on our doorstep.
Yes.
We've got to sort it out. But also, he's also the man who's saying, well, you need to sort out, increase your security budgets, and we all seem to be doing that.
Well, yes, there's a fly in the ointment.
What are we going to do with Chagos?
Yeah.
That seems to be in his hands. So he seems to still have a lot of control.
Yes, and so Keir Starmer, obviously they had to rush out this announcement on Tuesday about increasing defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2027. Two issues with that, and this was as it came out in the House of Commons yesterday and subsequently. The actual money in terms of the actual uplift, if you take into account inflation, is only £6 billion, not £13.4 billion. The other issue is this Chagos Islands deal. Now, David Lammy yesterday was quite astute, and he said, we're going to let Donald Trump make the final decision. Trump has the veto. That's handing power, saying to the US president, you can have the final say. And that's smart politics. It's sensible politics going into this crucial summit. But then, of course, if Donald Trump were to accept this deal, were to give it the green light, where is the money going to come from for the Chagos, to pay Mauritius to rent the Chagos Islands back? And yesterday at PMQs, the Prime Minister was very clear that, well, I mean, he wasn't very clear, but it seemed to be that the money was going to come from this uplift in the defence budget. Donald Trump doesn't want that money spent on the Chagos Islands deal. He wants that money spent on Europe defending its own borders, and that's the problem.
The Chagos Island deal then is dead in the water, isn't it? Because we already know that Trump is not a fan of.
Well, we know that Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, is, and yes, you're quite right to say this, the President has, and those around him have said they're not particularly have indicated that they're not going to support the deal. But let Trump decide whether he's going to make that decision. We would expect that decision to come in the next 24 hours during this meeting. But were he to approve it, what Trump is not going to want to hear from Keir Starmer is this prevarication around this money that Trump wants Europe and the UK to be spending on more military to defend its borders, so that we're not constantly relying on the United States. He wants that money spent in Europe. He doesn't want it spent just supporting this Chagos Islands.
But then that's the other thing as well. Increasing defence spending is one thing, because we know it's all necessary. If that increase in defence spending is doing nothing more than maintaining the status quo, what's the point?
Precisely that, and that's going to be at the forefront of the president's mind. He is going to want this money spent on Europe, and he doesn't want just the UK to be spending to the uplift in the defence budgets. He wants it right across Europe. And if Keir Starmer thinks that he can do some sort of sleight of hand when it comes to the way we spend our money here in the UK, the president would have had his team watching Prime Minister's questions. They would have heard what the Prime Minister said. They've got reports back about what the Prime Minister's spokesman said or didn't say to journalists after PMQs. They are fully appraised, make no mistake about it, about the spending situation. And what they don't want to happen is they don't want simply for Keir Starmer to make this grand gesture, and actually when you get into the detail and you get into the numbers behind it, it turns out to be not very much.
We had President Macron's visit to Washington on Monday. So Keir Starmer is obviously following that. I mean, many would say he set the bar quite high in terms of the clear rapport between Macron and Trump, the fist bumping, the big handshakes and the cuddles in the White House. What does Sir Keir Starmer have in his arsenal to get close to Trump, to get the very best out of Trump on this visit? Because he doesn't have that tactileness that clearly those two have.
You're quite right to pick up on this, Ellie. There is they're politically they're polar opposites, and by their personalities they are completely the opposite. You've got a businessman from New York with all of the bravado and braggadocio of Donald Trump, and then a lawyer from North London with all the sternness and the austere manner of Keir Starmer. And they are two different people. And Emmanuel Macron, I know many of your listeners won't like Emmanuel Macron, but he does have that sort of slightly Napoleonic, bravado to lean across and hold the president's arm and say, "To be frank, Mr. President." He's got that personality and he's got that chutzpah to do that, and I'm not sure that Keir Starmer has that, and I think that's going to be a real problem, because you can see this press, you can see that either the press conference or maybe that where they do I think they call it a gaggle of reporters, a spray, when the reporters come into the room and they meet they'll see, Donald Trump and Keir Starmer sat there, and Donald Trump's going to say something to needle Keir Starmer. And what does Keir Starmer do at that point? Does he sort of recoil and just sort of try and wish he wasn't there? Or does he actually say, no, sorry, Mr. President, you're wrong on that particular detail? And that's what we're all looking out for today.
He's going to have to. He's going to have to.
Well, I think many of your listeners will quite like him to. I think he's representing. He's not just representing the Labour government. He's not just representing the Labour Party. He's representing the country. He's there for all of us. He's representing Britain. And I think everybody will be looking on and saying, well, let's see. This is the biggest day of his career, if not his life, and it's going to be super interesting to follow throughout the day.
All right,
fascinated.
Theo, thank you. Let's talk to Chair of Republican Overseas UK, Greg Swenson. Morning, Greg.
Good morning.
Is all the power here in Trump's hands for this meeting?
It looks that way, but it doesn't necessarily have to end that way. And as Theo pointed out, this is an opportunity for Keir Starmer to develop a relationship. And as we've discussed on your show before, President Trump really likes the UK. That's the best thing that Keir Starmer has going for him right now. And I think maybe breaking the ice with an offer, the invitation from the King for a state visit will also play to Starmer's favor in the sense that, it's a positive moment for President Trump to hear that.
And I guess he's also got the special relationship to fall back on. But, does Trump consider it to be a special relationship?
I think he does. Only because it's the UK. I don't think he would give that kind of credit or that kind of elevation to a lot of countries. He knows that the U.S. is the biggest and most powerful country in the world. He gets that, but he does have this attachment or this relationship with the UK. He came here twice during his first term, had a state visit on the second trip, and so he's got a real connection. He likes the King. He likes Prince William. He has a real fondness for the UK. Now, that might not matter when it comes to dollars and cents and military spending and defense and security. Maybe he's going to look past that, that fondness. But I think Keir Starmer's got a great opportunity today.
What about this US backstop? Because, that's been crucial in everything Keir Starmer's been saying about getting in there and having, in effect, a peacekeeping force, all the rest of it. He's saying, well, right, Europe will do this,
right,
but there needs to be a US backstop as an extra layer of security.
Yeah, and I think he'd be better off not pushing that and not demanding detail, because they're not going to get into detail, I don't think, anyway. And I think he'd be better off just knowing that the US backstop is there. But if you push it and you make it a requirement, you demand sort of detailed support, I think that's a mistake. Of course, the U.S. is going to be there, especially with air defense and intelligence. That the U.S. has to do what the other NATO forces, what the Europeans can't do. So it has to be, if it's boots on the ground, that's going to be from the European allies. If it's air support and sophisticated systems, all of that will be provided by the U.S., but I don't think he gets into the detail of that or makes it part of a deal.
No, but what's interesting when it was mentioned in that news conference, the one thing he sort of said, well, NATO's finished. We're done. We're done with NATO.
Right.
Look, and he said this in his first term as well. But is that looking like a reality?
It's provocative. He's doing that because he likes to throw a grenade in the room. He likes to be provocative. He likes to be he likes to be disruptive. And if that means that will force or encourage NATO or the European countries to spend more on defense, to upgrade, which they desperately need to do. And we all know that this 2% minimum, yes, it's being met by 21 of the countries now. It was only 4, I believe, when Trump started in 2017. It's still completely inadequate. It has to be something more significant, whether that's 3 or 4% is debatable. And the U.S., by the way, in the Biden years, cut defense spending 3% a year in real terms, 3 years in a row. So that should be a real worry for the rest of NATO. The U.S. is still 50% of NATO defense spending, and that's significantly lower than, the contributions from the U.S. are lower than they were 3 years ago. I think you'll see much more spending or support from Trump generally on defense spending. You saw it in his first term, but that should be something, that's something that's overlooked a lot in the complaints from the European countries But I do think both the U.S. and the other NATO countries have to increase defense and security spending. There's no doubt about it.
So Keir Starmer was quite careful with his words on the plane to Washington earlier, and he's talking about being a bridge between Europe and the US. Like, he doesn't need to make a choice, like he can be a friend to all.
Sure.
Do you think that is the case, or do you think Trump will want him to choose and he would see the UK as its own independent entity?
Yeah, I think President Trump would prefer the latter. But on the other hand, Keir has a point. Like, this could be a great opportunity for him to be the bridge, both economically as well as from a defense perspective. And so I think, he should take this as an opportunity to upgrade the UK. And I do think that the president would like that. Because, again, he has a fondness for the UK, not the EU. He doesn't like multilateral organizations. President Biden, on the other hand, favored the EU on many occasions, always leaned toward Ireland and the rest of the EU at the expense of the UK. So in spite of their political differences, and as Theo pointed out, their personality differences, this is a chance for Keir Starmer, because the president prefers the UK as an independent country. He loved Brexit, as opposed to Obama and Biden, who were very much anti-Brexit. So this is a chance for him, even though Keir wasn't exactly a Brexiteer. But I think, again, it's a great opportunity because President Trump likes the UK, and he especially likes the UK as an independent country.
OK. Greg, thank you. We're going to talk to Greg and Theo a little bit later on as well. But it's interesting, the idea that perhaps Keir Starmer won't be coming home with egg on his face, which was perhaps the sort of expectation. Maybe this can be resolved, this can be saved in a way which is going to end up being good for the States and good for us. Well, let us know what you think. It's a diplomatic tightrope that Keir Starmer is going to be walking. Let us know what you think could happen in this meeting in Washington today. GBNews.com/you'll say.